is the 3D printed Pinarello Bolide F HR3D that Filippo Ganna used to break the UCI hour record and set an astonishing distance of 56.792 kilometers. I'm going to tell you everything about this bike because this is the first time I've actually seen it in person. Oh, I'm so excited. This bike is so cool. So the big headline with this bike is it's 3D printed out of something called scalmalloy, which is a scandium, aluminium, magnesium alloy. And that was done by a Metron Engineering, who are a consultancy based near Derby. Now, this is the first ever UCI approved 3D printed sort of pro bike. And it's quite heavy, actually. You might be surprised to hear that it's 9.3 kilograms, bit of a heifer. But weight isn't the most important thing when doing an hour record, and so it didn't really matter too much. The most important thing is aero, and there's loads of incredible aero features on the bike. However, the guys at Metron Engineering did tell me that it's massively over-engineered, and if this were to go into more large-scale production, they could make it significantly lighter. They just wanted to make sure that it was strong enough and that it worked and it passed the UCI rules so they could get it through to do the hour record and be UCI approved. You can see the sticker down there. And so it has a lot more material in it than is required. But being 3D printed has a number of huge advantages. And one of them is that they can create structures and shapes that would just be incredibly hard to do out of normal composite carbon fiber techniques. Namely this. This ribbed section on the seat tube and down tube features these little nodules, which are inspired by the tubercles that you find on the fins of humpback whales. A lot of aerodynamics research has been done into these, and the idea behind it is that as the rider's legs are pedaling, they create a lot of turbulent airflow and messy air in this particular region of the bike. But by having this noduled section, the air sticks to the down tube much better rather than the airflow becoming detached. It can re-energize the flow having these nodules there, and so therefore make the bike more aerodynamic. Now, well, considering this particular frame has had 2 successive hour records at the hands of Dan Bigham and Filippo Ganna, could well be something in it. The cockpit is amazing on this bike. Again, additive manufactured, badged up with Most on there, which is the component brand from Pinarello. But what's pretty cool about this is it's completely customized for Ganna, and it has an incredibly narrow base bar that's 36 centimeters wide, I believe. But the arm pad placement is really curious. So this is to sort of circumvent one of the mad UCI rules, which is that the height of the top of the tri-bar extension has to be within 100 millimeters of the arm pad. This is something that is sort of almost like a penalty for bigger riders like Filippo Ganna. And so it doesn't specify in the UCI rules whether that's arm pad or elbow pad. So what they basically do is, rather than have the pad in the standard position, which is to support your elbow, meaning it would be further down here and contravene that rule, they position it further up here so that it's on his sort of forearm and doesn't break that 100 mil rule. This effectively allows him to get that sort of high hand position where his head is hidden behind his hands. The saddle on the bike, that's a Physique Aries saddle. And it's actually been modified slightly. It's got some special sort of grippy tape stuck on the top there to stop him sliding around on the saddle and hold him in place, because any slight positional changes while you're riding along can actually have quite a big aero penalty. So one of the things that the top riders now who do time trials are trying to do is actually stay as still as possible, and to that end they'll do a lot of core work. The paint job on the bike, very simple but very nice. You've got the tricolour, obviously nodding to the fact that Ganna is Italian, and then this black. But it's not just a plain black, it's metallic. It's got a little shine to it. You can see little flecks of sort of glitter in there. It's very nice when you see it in person. I'm not sure if it'll come out on camera. The other striking thing with this bike is how it definitely takes advantage of the changes in the UCI rules, which allowed for deeper tube sections and thinner tube sections. And that's also something that it can take advantage of because of this 3D printing construction technique rather than traditional carbon layups. So you look here at the seat stays and the fork blades, they're so thin. And the gaps between where they finish and the wheels, it's just such a tiny little gap. It's like presumably incredibly aerodynamic having it so thin and narrow, especially when you look at it, front on. The bike is just, it almost becomes invisible. I'm going to go through all the details on the bike, but something I wanted to show you first, because I've not seen it anywhere reported before, is this little cheeky notch in the bottom of the fork blade. That is for a transponder timing chip, and it even has little holes for the zip tie so that it can neatly be stored there out of the wind. Traditionally, what they do on bikes is they attach it to the front fork blade there with some zip ties, and it sort of sticks out, and maybe they cover it up with a bit of tape or old inner tube. But the clearance between the fork blade and the wheel is so narrow that probably wouldn't work, and this is going to be more aero, but that is a really cool feature. I have not seen that on a bike before. Nice. The crankset is incredible. I mean, let's look at the size of it. It's a monster, a bit like Ganna. So this is a Wattshop Kratos crankset, and just look how aerodynamic and smooth it is. It's not messy like a normal crankset with different bits coming off it. It's just smoothed over, nice and aerodynamic. This ring is a 64 tooth, and the carbon chainring isn't just for bling. It actually features a low friction additive as well, and that's then paired with this Izumi Kai chain, which was specially treated by Muc-Off, which apparently through sort of countless treating, retreating, cleaning processes, they were able to reduce the friction of the drivetrain and actually save between 20 to 25 meters on the hour record. It's not much, but that could be the difference between breaking it or not breaking it. I mean, it's going to be hard enough, isn't it? You'll take whatever you can get. It's also paired with a 14-tooth cog at the back there as well, so 64, 14. Absolutely massive gear. The cranks themselves, again, very smooth, very aero looking, and they are 170 millimeters long, so quite short for a rider as big as Ganna, but having the shorter cranks means that his hip angle can be opened up a bit more, and it means he can adopt a slightly more aerodynamic position on the TT bike. This is a common thing we see in TT positions and on TT bikes now. The pedal choice intrigues me quite a lot, because when Dan Bigham broke the hour record on the same type of bike, he was using Speedplay aero pedals, which are more aerodynamic, but crucially allow you to get a lower stack height, which means you can have your saddle a bit lower, you're a bit lower. That results in quite a significant aero saving. Ganna has stuck with the Shimano pedals that he uses on the road. Presumably he just sort of, wanted to stick with what he knew. Both Bigham and Ganna used the same Princeton Carbon Works wheels. These have been customized. They actually say Top Ganna on them in nice metallic silver graphics, and then Princeton here. But the way in which these fit into the bike, as I said, against the stays, I mean, the gap is absolutely tiny. They fit very well and presumably are very aerodynamic within this particular frame. Mounted onto them, the tyre choice is intriguing. So rather than use tubulars, which have been what most hour records have been done on and what most track riders use, clinchers are the name of the day here. These aren't any old clinchers. These are the new Continental GP5000 TT clinchers, and they're the Tour de France sort of special edition ones. These are presumably a very fast tyre, and the width of them, I can't see it written on the tyre, so I'm not sure if they're 23 or 25 millimeter tyres. One of the intriguing things about this particular Continental tyre is the tread pattern. So this is something that they found out serendipitously, by mistake. It almost wasn't intended. But the tread pattern that they had on GP4000 and GP5000 tyres is actually really aero. And so they've actually started engineering that tread pattern onto these special TT tyres, which used to just have a completely smooth surface with no tread pattern, because there is actually a slight aero benefit to it, which is bizarre. The other thing to point out is that these tyres will be paired with latex inner tubes for lower rolling resistance as well. started filming this video, the show hadn't opened, and then I went and got a beer, and it's opened. A feature I forgot to mention is that the little aero nodules on here, they can actually be tuned depending on the size of the rider's legs and all that stuff. Because it's 3D printed, you can make it whatever size you want. So in terms of modeling the sort of aero benefit of those nodules, that is something that, yeah, can be tuned to the rider's size and shape. This effectively allows him to get that sort of high hands position where his head is hidden behind his hands. The saddle on the bike, that's a Physique Aries saddle, and it's actually been modified slightly. It's got some special sort of grippy tape stuck on the top there to stop him sliding around on the saddle and hold him in place, because any slight positional changes while you're riding along can actually have quite a big aero penalty. So one of the things that the top riders now who do time trials are trying to do is actually stay as still as possible, and to that end they'll do a lot of core work. Another really interesting detail on the bike is actually the bottom bracket area. So here we've actually got ceramic speed bottom bracket fitted in there, which I'm going to guess has had the seals removed, because there is actually a substantial gain from having the seals removed on bottom brackets. It reduces the drag quite a bit. It's not something you do day in, day out, because it means that dirt gets in there and it gets ruined very quickly. But for a one-off record on the track, why wouldn't you do it? But the most interesting thing about the bottom bracket is that it's very narrow. It's just 54 millimeters wide. That means you've got a much narrower Q factor than you have on most track bikes as standard and most road bikes as standard. The reason for this is it just allows the rider's legs and knees to get in closer and narrower, making you more aerodynamic overall. This is something that Dan Bigham had on his Pinarello as well. But you know, that's most of the details on this particular bike. But for me, the most exciting thing about this is the fact that it is 3D printed, because what you have to see here is the potential of that technology trickling down and being applied into everyday bikes that you or I can go and buy in the shops. The customization potential is endless, and also it opens up just more exciting shapes and cross sections that can be made because it is 3D printed. So I hope you've found this video interesting about the bike, and if you've got any questions about it, let us know your thoughts and questions in the comment section below. And for more stuff like this, you know what to do: like and subscribe.